Yep.
Cool. So yeah, what Sana has been talking about, and you're familiar with CIPs and issues that we create before just creating a CIP. So this is the issue that we created for refactoring Ceramic API, not just the Ceramic API, but how documents and are presented, what are doc types, and everything else related to that. So we elaborated here. You can go through the issue and see actually how that evolved. And at the end, we came up with some APIs that we think that are quite good enough for development. Maybe we'll change them while we introduce other doc types as well. And we are working on documentation. This is kind of like a starter doc that we included as a guide in the JS Ceramic, and it describes a couple of APIs, the most important ones that you need in order to create a doc type. So out of the box, we have 3 doc types, 3 ID doc type, style doc type, and account title doc type. But you're able to create your own. I'm gonna go, and yeah, feel free to interrupt me anytime. I'm gonna go just briefly through the APIs, not like complete APIs, but the most important ones. And then I'll show the demo, how it's structured, how you can create some documents, pin them, and actually, yeah, the API, the CLI API. Again, feel free to interrupt me anytime. Cool. So yeah, in order to implement a new doc type, there are a couple of interfaces that should be that are like the most important ones. Obviously, the doc type interface and the doc type handler interface. The doc type is actually the interface that is used to implement the actual document, and the doc type handler to do state transition. You can like think of it like a state transition handler that is registered on a Ceramic node and is used to update doc types and actually to transition states between the previous version of doc type and a new version, the update actually. There are a couple of more constructs that are interesting here, the doc type static and the doc type constructor. So every doc type has to have like the same constructor. You can see from the code here that it needs to take the document state and the context. I'll say later what's the context as a Ceramic context. And the doc type static is just like a it's an annotation actually, sugar coding, so how to enforce some static methods, for example, make genesis into the doc type. And one of the most important interfaces is the Ceramic API that we refactored, and you can communicate. It's exactly the same if you like communicate directly to him, if that's the node that is running on your machine, or indirectly if the node is running on the same machine or it's running somewhere locally, so you can just invoke it over HTTP. Oops, sorry, my mouse went crazy. So just yeah, briefly, I don't know, Sana, should I go like into more detail, or this is enough?
Yeah, I mean, is there any, like, what are the most important things that someone would need to be aware of just when they're thinking about a doc type?
Yeah, so you can, yeah, let's briefly go through the interface and describe how we changed the previous implementation of our doc types according to this one. So doc type gets the document state and the context. This is the Ceramic context. And obviously, these are the IDs that can be driven from the state itself, more or less, and sugar coding here, where you can just call the document change and just generic parameters based on your document that you need to change. Every doc type extends the event emitter, so you're able to listen onto some events that Ceramic can emit. For example, a change event or some other future events. So in that way, your document can react upon those events. This is just the example of how we implemented the tile doc type. So as I said, you can just pass generic parameters. Here we have tile parameters with content and owners. This is the sugar coding that I've been talking about, doc type static that enforces the constructor and make Genesis static method that needs to be implemented. We here extend the doc type, the interface, the abstract class actually that I mentioned above. And here is where you just need to implement your code in order to change the documents. This is the make Genesis is enforced as well. So by the doc type, by the doc type static and doc type constructor. If there are no questions regarding the doc type, yeah, these other methods are private ones, and you can actually see them from the repo. We can go through it if that's interesting to you as well. So
maybe just quickly to clarify, so the doc type class is basically what you use to interact with a document that has that type.
Yeah.
So you would interact with, like, say like change it in a particular way and pass parameters. But if you implement your own doc type, you might implement like other methods that allow you to interact with the document in different ways.
Yeah. So this change is, we'll see later, this change is not necessary. It's more like sugar coding, because you can use Ceramic API and apply record that we will see. That I'll talk about later. And you can actually do like changes in like different like interactions and different applications as well. Change is just a sugar coding here. As for the doc type handler, this is the interface that needs to be implemented in order to like you will register the doc type handler to the Ceramic node, and doc type handler is responsible for making state transitions upon the doc type that is like syncing or the network. From this is the most important, the only method that needs to be implemented. This is that actually applies the record to the document. So for now, if you go to an implementation, for example, of the tile doc type handler, you can see that we, based on some logic, we apply the Genesis record, signed record, or an anchor record. But yeah, in the future, maybe it will be like some other kinds of records, and depends on the use case and the doc type that you are implementing. And this is the one simple example of tile doc type handler. So we implement the doc type handler with enforced tile doc type from the previous interface, and we say that it's a tile doc type. We of course register the tile doc type itself, and here just we are creating a tile doc type, and this is the most important one. So this is like logic that we use for tile doc type. So if there is no state, we apply Genesis. If there's a proof, we apply anchor, or we apply signed record. But if that's if you have another use case, you can actually do whatever here. So this is a straight state transition. So I don't want to go more into the code here, because you can always check it out on our GitHub account. But here, what's really important is to know that we have a context. This is the ceramic context. For now, where you have a user, the IPFS instance, the DID resolver, DID provider, anchor service interface, so you're able to pass another kind of anchor service. You don't need to use the anchor service we provide out of the box. And this is the self-reference to the Ceramic API. So from the doc type, like Joel has mentioned, you're free to use the API directly. You don't need to implement a change method. You can just use the Ceramic API. Why is Ceramic API so important? Because it's registers more or less all the functionality of the Ceramic node. So we have a pinning API here. Function for adding a doc type handler, getting a doc type handler. This is the create document. You can create a document from the Genesis record itself. You can load document and apply record. That's actually what is being called from the doc type layer when you're creating your doc type. And set the ID provider and just close gracefully the Ceramic instance. So this API is implemented both on the Ceramic node that is running on your machine, or like the one that is the HTTP client. They're the same. If you have any questions, yeah, feel free to ask me. I'm just going through this briefly, but we can go deeper if we want. So I'll just I'll just demo. This is a simple demo how you can use the Ceramic locally.
Can you maybe zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
No worries. So this is I have to zoom them. It's not zooming all at once. Oops. Cool. So by default, so we added the configurations for the Ceramic node. I'll just remove, So I'll start the IPFS daemon. Then I'll start Ceramic daemon. And here you can see that it's generating identity wallet seed. The identity wallet seed is generated, and it's stored in Ceramic. It's stored here as a plain text, but again, we are planning to maybe encrypt it somehow, or just for now it's stored as a seed here as a configuration. So this is your DID, and let's create. Before that, maybe let's see what's the API. Ceramic help. So again, it's the same as the previous one, the previous API, but now we support pinning as well. This is the local pinning. So Ceramic pin help. You can add documents, remove it, or just list it. More or less similar API as the IPFS has. I'll create one document. So I'll just create a title document, the one that we've been talking about earlier, and you can see that we support now the different encoding for doc IDs as well. So this is the newer one, but the old one is let's state it and just see what the state, right? Okay, it's not being anchored. By default, Ceramic node is using our anchor service deployed that is anchoring to Ethereum. I think once a day, or change the interval. I'm not that sure, but we can use the old. So this is the old way of how we represented the doc IDs. So we support both. Let's pin one or see whether. So this is pinned. There are some pinned documents from before. So ceramic pin ls. Yeah, so now it's pinned, and that's been low.
Question: when you show the state of the document, yep. Before, didn't it show like when the anchor was like scheduled to happen?
Yeah, that's what I noticed. What I noticed now, that should be pending actually, or requested. So I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it was removed or if that was just like a bug.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it. That shouldn't be.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So thanks for the input. This is yeah, we can play with the ceramics you like here more, but what is changed a bit, what is changed a lot actually is we can see that from the if we list directories now in the ceramic node, so we actually split. We added the ceramic common. Ceramic common contains all the interfaces and types that are needed in order to build a new doc type to support other handlers, and there's some utils as well. So ceramic core is just bare like minimum, and it's kind of like an engine that syncs your listens to the PubSub room and syncs your document states. And these are the 3 doc types built pulled from the ceramic core, and they're the separate packages, so they're just created here and supported out of the box, so you're able just to create new ones and just register them or the ceramic API. And yeah, that's kind of it. I can go more into details into the code itself, but I don't know if that's necessary.
Oh, cool. I think one thing to note here is like, so both Ceramic Core and Ceramic HTTP client follows the same API that you demoed earlier. So in a browser application, for example, you could choose to use either the HTTP client and rely on like a node that's on your local machine or on like some external server, or you could run Ceramic Core and actually run the full Ceramic node in the browser. So it kind of gives you the flexibility to, like, even as you build the application, like switch back and forth between those 2 options.
Yeah. Again, if we stop the ceramic daemon and start it again, it will use the seed that we already generated. Just to wrap up. Do you have any questions or more specific questions, maybe to dive into the code as well?
So this is the new branch. Is it in a specific branch? Which one should?
We released it, so it should be aligned. I think that we will create one more release, maybe today or tomorrow, with some bug fixes. But yeah, it's on the master branch.
Cool.
Yeah, so generally we use the master branch just for releases, and then develop is kind of where everything that's like new is. But I think they're pretty much in a similar state right now.
Yeah. So and here we plan actually to add documents as well as like I went through the doc type starter documents, but those are kind of like guides more or less. If you want more specific documents, we can always go to the CAPs that we are creating. And from this CAP, for example, where we elaborated how to refactor it and what are how to do it, we're gonna create obviously a CAP that will be stored. Oops, sorry. In the CAPs. Yeah, once when the PR gets merged. Cool. I don't know if there are no questions. Senna, would you like to?
Yeah. So there's some cool people working on interesting things as part of the HackFS hackathon on Ceramic. So a team is trying to create a doc type for verifiable claims, which is useful, like in the more traditional identity context where an entity is issuing a claim about issuing a claim or a statement about a DID. And so pretty soon, verifiable claims will be a new doc type that's on Ceramic. There's also a team called like the GeoWeb. They basically want to tie physical locations to documents on Ceramic, which is really cool. So basically have a registry of physical locations and then map them to Ceramic documents. And so that's, I think for the most part. Joel, do you want to talk about some of the JS DID work and stuff and DAG Jose work that you're doing?
Cool. Yeah, I can give some overview of that. So one of the things that we've been working on as kind of like a core component to Ceramic is something that's called DAG Jose. So IPFS has this layer called IPLD. And in IPLD, you can have different formats of putting basically data into IPLD. And cool thing about IPLD data is that you can like have a data object that links to another data object. And they have like different formats for doing that. Like one is DAG JSON. They have DAG CBOR, which is like a binary version of JSON. And they have some other using protobuf, I believe. But the thing with that is that that's only for kind of raw data in a sense. And what we really need for Ceramic is signed data and encrypted data. And in order to kind of facilitate that, we have been looking at some standards from IETF. That's the Internet Engineering Task Force. So they have two different standards, one called Jose and one called Cose. And they're basically two different standards that are basically the same, as one is using JSON, one is using CBOR for storing signed and encrypted objects, basically. And so what we want to do is like use those standards as a kind of codec in IPLD, or like an IPLD format to store just like these linked data objects together. And so right now we have like a prototype for the DAG Jose version of that you can plug into IPFS and then have IPFS work with signed and encrypted data out of the box. So that's like ongoing work. And the ultimate goal there is also to kind of have this Cose version of that. It's like a binary, more compact version of that. But yeah, so that's super cool. And in order to kind of give developers an interface to interact with this, we're creating a very thin kind of low-level DID library. It's called JSDID. And that basically allows you to kind of request a signature of like a DAG object and then return one of these DAG Jose objects. And it can also, like, you can request it to decrypt a DAG Jose object, and basically you get back an object that you can just put into IPFS. And Yeah, so and that's basically will be like the lowest level interface that you will interact with a DID. And the interface, how it works with walls is we're creating something called DID provider. And that's kind of similar if you're familiar with like how Ethereum works, and there's like an Ethereum JSON RPC provider. So this kind of has the same kind of JSON RPC structure, and it allows basically any wallet to implement these functionality to kind of interact with encrypted and signed data on IPFS. Yeah, so a lot of kind of details there about specifics, but I hope that gave you like a good kind of in-depth overview.
Cool. Yeah, that's definitely exciting. I mean, standardizing the DID interface and providing low-level IPFS encryption capabilities is super important.
Yeah, and if it wasn't obvious, like that's kind of a core piece of like how we structure data within Ceramic itself.
Yeah, because everything in Ceramic really is signed by DIDs. Could be a DID on Ceramic natively, like a 3ID, and it could be a DID that lives elsewhere that's just resolved. The resolver is added to the node. So really, like any DID can interact with Ceramic. So this obviously is important. All right, what else? I mean, maybe worth mentioning that we have a couple, where are we here? Joel, are you sharing your screen or is Janka? Actually, no one is. Let me share my screen. So probably worth noting that there are a bunch of CIPs that are sort of working their way to getting a bit more mature. So obviously last time we talked about identity index. Where are we here? And it may have been called resource routing protocol then, IRP. We changed the name just because this is nicer. But so this is getting a bit more formalized. And as you can see, like really it consists of the root directory and the subdirectories. And some of these are getting more fleshed out, like root index is pretty fleshed out. Profiles index, keychain index, and accounts index, and even within some of them, some of the standards that they're built on or that they sort of like link to are getting more developed. So, yep. So I mean, like basic profile, for example, is getting a bit more fleshed out. And there's been a bunch of comments around related data, such as like locales, but that's like not exactly profile data. So we're thinking that we may actually add a new subdirectory to the identity index protocol that's just called like a settings document. And then that may link to a locales document. So you can do things like language or keyboard or currency or things like that.
Will this profile document be used for 3 bucks?
Yep. So basically 3 bucks, the entire identity and profiles and related sets of functionalities from 3 bucks will be built on Ceramic and the IIP and all the like linked and related standards. And an interesting thing too is, so if you guys have any input on these, like about like even, you know, like what the value should be, like we're talking about now sort of like nationality could use ISO and birth date could use ISO. And so that's some standards work going on there. Additionally, we also had 2 new ones, which basically are CIPs that define schemas. So this one's really basic, but string map is just, it defines a schema that just maps a string to a string. And the Ceramic can enforce that. So if you have a document that conforms to the string map schema, like you will only ever be able to add 2 strings to it, and or like a list of string to string. Like you can't add other things. So like the protocol is actually going to begin to enforce schemas, and the profile index is one of those. So basically, the profile index is just mapping like basic to, it could be a ceramic doc ID, but could also be like a URL or something else. So that's why we use string map there. Yeah, I think you can take a peek around. There's some others that are more developed, but also this cycle, Janko's over the next couple of weeks, Janko's working on adding versions to documents and enforcing schemas in the protocol. So Janko, if you want to just say a couple words about that, it might be helpful.
Yeah, I'll be working. The thing is, every time the document gets anchored, it will get another version of the document. So you will be able to get the specific version of the document that was anchored. And about schemas, so the thing is, we started working on that. So we will use JSON schema. We'll support JSON schemas for now. Those JSON schemas will be, this is of course the draft version, since we started working on that. So the schemas will be on Ceramic Network as well. So the document can actually reference a schema by the Ceramic, by the document ID. We are thinking about do we need to enforce schemas? Do we need to just warn if the schema if the document is not being validated, so valid according to the schema? So I think that we'll have that should be kind of configurable. So from the previous talk, from the doc type layer, so when you're building your document and doc type, and if you want to change it, then in front we can actually validate according to the schema if the document is valid, and we can enforce it. And from the other side, when the Ceramic node or the core, call it an engine, right? It's syncing the data from the network, listening to the pub sub, and if we want to apply records and just change the state, then we can actually not enforce, but we can apply schema validation there as well. So the first approach would be actually the first one, and then we'll think about it. But yeah, that should be configurable. How to turn in, and do we need to enforce it or just to notify? And this is kind of a brief overview of the things that we will be doing, and specific schemas can be found on issues in the CAP area, and yeah, feel free to drop some comments there. But for now, yeah, JSON schema will be supported. We also thought about it, do we need to kind of have already resolved schema, in the schema ID, schema header. So that's actually something that we're discussing about it, about some. So that's why I'm not gonna go much deeper into it. But is this gonna be a part of the metadata? Are some of the fields gonna go to the header, and the metadata will be stored there, and how we should structure the metadata? So yeah, a lot of work there, definitely. But in the end, your document can specify the schema, and your document can be validated against that schema.
Yeah, and also sort of another thing that we're going to be adding to is we've been having a bunch of conversations about how and what will be the most efficient way to index documents on Ceramic to sort of make them queryable however you want, maybe through the graph with GraphQL or whatever. And so additionally to the metadata, we're going to be adding a tags, a tags array. And so you could add metadata such as tags to your documents, which mean for example, it's useful where, let's say you have 2 of these index documents from the IIP. And they both use the string map schema. So they're both like mapping strings to strings. There would be no way to like tell them apart. And so using tags to say like, this is a profiles index and this is a whatever services index. And then you can also add other tags even for different use cases. Like if your app is sort of like, let's say you're creating you have a blogging platform and your users are creating blog posts in the form of documents. Your blog post, the document that represents the blog post may be using a blog post schema, right? And so that would be in the schema, but you might be able to add your application name in the tag. So like, this is used by my application, or it was generated from my app. So that way indexers could be sort of like in the Merkle tree with the anchor service. These tags and schemas will be added sort of as like Bloom filters. And so you'll be able to sort of like understand if some of the things you care about might have been updated in this batch of updates that went on chain. So you'll have like by DID or by schema or by tags. And so it will just give a better indication of like how to work with this Merkle root that was put on chain. And so like, although Ceramic is providing like explicit structure to data in how it's like written, tags will eventually allow anyone to search it however they want. But again, that's sort of like later, once there's like more advanced indexing services built on top and different interfaces for accessing the content. Whereas without all of that, like it's important to know the paths at which data exists. So that's just been a lot of updates from us. Any questions, thoughts, and welcome to some of you that joined. I recognize some names from Discord. Any questions? Anything we can answer? Concerns? No. And hopefully it won't be too long.
Michael, I don't know if that's the appropriate context here, so cut me off if you think this is not the right forum for this, but I was going through some of the documentation and descriptions, and I would propose that we are being more descriptive in terms of some of the verbiage being used and to identify some of the terms more correctly. So I was just going through this in some instances, it seems that identifiers and identity are conflated, if that makes sense. And it's very important to keep those separate. And there's a few layers also still missing to be legally relevant, if you know what I mean. Again, I mean, if this is not the right forum, cut me off and we'll have a separate discussion about that. But I think it is very important to get structurally right as a starting point.
Yeah, no, I mean, totally helpful. I think we definitely agree that there's a huge difference in identifiers and identities and all the other layers that go to the set of things that ultimately make up identity. So yeah, I mean, if you could provide us input there, that's totally helpful. Maybe we missed.
Okay, yeah, I'm working on a larger paper in that regards right now. So a little bit of background. I was just briefing the Chief Privacy Officer for the US Senate last week on the state of identity technology. For the past 2 years, we've been looking into identity technology from our perspective. As an investor in the space, it's important that this topic gets solved in a useful fashion in order for us to be able to allocate to what I call value transfer solutions, right? And from that respect, you need to kind of look at this from a, let's call it the legal angle. As in, how do you actually convey human agency through technology? I.e., the typical example I usually make for this is, at the end of the day, if you want to enforce an asset or a right, oftentimes you obviously, unfortunately, still have to interact with the real world, so to speak. And so that's obviously at that point in time where the court systems might come in, i.e. at some point in time, if we are hoping to transfer things peer-to-peer, i.e. deeds for homes and titles for cars and so forth, we need to make this enforceable in the real world, right? And there's a couple of concepts that we don't have at the moment in the protocol.
Oh, hello. Hey, Kai, how are you? Hey, Carl, how are you?
Sorry, one of my other conferences jumped in.
No
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, I just wanted to offer this up. As I said, if it's not useful for this particular discussion, we can move it to a different time and forum. But yeah, we are super passionate about this particular topic. We think that you guys have one of the most enlightened approaches to it. And so that's why I wanted to see if we can help out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Are you in our Discord by any chance? I mean, it would be great potentially to maybe hop on like a separate call.
I'll add myself. I'm terrible with those tools, I have to say. I'm kind of an IRC guy, so to speak. Right? I'm 50, so the first company you built was a dial-up internet service provider, right? Back in the old days. So I'm very slow to gravitate to those.
Okay, well, I think email.
I'll do that though.
I just dropped my email in the chat.
Okay, cool.
You can feel free to shoot us a note, and it'd be great to hear what you found and some of your recommendations.
Yeah, sounds good. I'd love to have an in-depth discussion. And I wrote a short article that's on Forbes right now on that topic, but again, they limit me to 1,000 words, so it's super high level. It's still nerdy enough that 99% of people won't understand it, but at the same point in time, it's not technical enough to be useful, like for implementation.
Yep, I know all about that.
Okay, I have to jump on this other call, but yeah, I'll reach out and we'll schedule something.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Christian.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So, any other questions, thoughts? If not, I mean, I think like keep an eye out for some of the CIPs and stuff. I think we're gonna try and like get some of the missing pieces to at least the draft state, complete draft state, and then we can. I'll probably just be like sharing some stuff on Twitter and on some social channels to try to generate, to surface engagement from people that might be interested, and then following that, we'll probably be kicking off the CEA. All of that in the next couple weeks. So working groups for identity. Also, just as an announcement, like we got approved, I think I may have said this last time, but not sure. We got approved for a grant by the Filecoin team to integrate Filecoin IDs with 3ID. So now you can like authenticate Filecoin using a DID. And also for a second grant to integrate Filecoin as a persistence option to a Ceramic node. So basically like refactoring the Ceramic node so you can, add a persistence option. So you'll have local pinning, but you'll also have like persistence. And so local pinning will always still be there, but now you can just like back up the content to Filecoin. And so it's sort of like more of the pieces are coming together because obviously now we only have local pinning, but adding some external persistency on a decentralized system will be awesome.
We also might be an option for that.
Oh, really? Yeah, so I don't know more about that on Flow. How does that work?
So you kind of, each account has storage. And so the way it works is everything is actually a resource in storage. And what you're doing is you are allowing capabilities outside of that storage to other accounts based on the contracts. So there's probably a really close mapping between the resources and the documents. So the way it works is they're persisted on the nodes and all that. All the storage is globally persisted on the network.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it seems like it would be a pretty close mapping because in reality too, like how it, like we're encoding everything in IPLD, but wherever you want to persist that IPLD content is sort of up to you. So I think on Flow can be a cool place. We're even thinking like, okay, what if someone wants to just like, back it up to S3? And I guess that you could do that too, just some guarantee to that node. because it, you know, it might be replicated and pinned elsewhere too. And so just adding some more resiliency and availability to the stuff is super interesting. How far away might persisting on Flow be, or like what would be required? Is that like ready?
Yeah, I mean, we have the DevNet and the mainnet sort of running. They're in sort of closed beta, or mainnet's I think closed alpha, and DevNet's like closed beta. But yeah, you can persist things there. You can drop a bunch of bytes on a resource and store it if needed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to take a look. If there's any docs you can share on some of that stuff, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, it might be, maybe let's arrange a call or something to sort of show you kind of where we're going and what we're getting. Probably a week or so though.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Just
I'll tailor something for you to see it.
okay. But yeah, I mean, we would ideally like, right, Ceramic works like you're setting up a node. You're basically just like defining a bunch of node settings. It's like my node is gonna use this anchor service which anchors on this chain, and my node is gonna use this service for persistence in case it goes down. I can get all my data back. Like, you know, designing it to be, you know, like we really want Ceramic to be this like point of convergence between these technologies that have like previously been separated or siloed, right? Like the fact that account keys from one chain only work on that chain, and sort of storage is with its own key, and you have all these different things. And so whatever is sort of in service of that vision of sort of like bringing these things together in a useful way, we're all about. So, I mean, this kind of fits squarely into that.
Yeah, I already, so in Danny, in my correspondence, I believe it was with Danny, but said that we'll have stuff to, I think, show you probably like 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. It's still really super rough, but I can definitely fit that into that as well.
Okay, and stuff related to the FCL, or?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I look forward to that. We're almost at time. Anything else? If not, I think we can get a couple minutes back on a Friday. Janko and Joel, it's already late for you guys, I know. Cool. All right, well, thanks for joining. Also, next Friday is Core Devs call. Probably talk about some interesting things that are coming down the pipeline there. So this is, you know, ideally intended to be more CIP related and community welcoming and stuff, and Core Devs more related to like things that might touch the core protocol. But in the early days, you know, it's cool if we just talk about whatever in either call. So on that note, maybe I'll see some of you next Friday. If not, I'll see you next time. See y'all.
So,
Yeah.
I was late. Thanks.